Hello and welcome everybody. You are watching Coffee Break with Vanessa, where everybody gets to change the world simply by loving their own. I am super stoked that you're joining me again this week. I have a very special guest, someone who I get to be lucky enough to call a friend, someone I love dearly, and his name is Michael Sanders. Hello there, sir.
Hey, Vanessa.
How are you, babe?
I'm wonderful. How are you doing?
I'm really good. I'm
Awesome.
really good. I'm so happy that you're here.
Me too.
Partaking in this. This is a new venture that we're doing, and I couldn't think of anybody else that I wanted on the show. I needed to have you, so I'm so happy you're here.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So on this show, for those of you that are watching, we talk about things that make a difference. We're into conversations that make a difference. Want authentic, transparent conversations. There hasn't been any lineup of questions I sent you. This is just in the moment, and we're having a moment together. And basically what I wanted to share with people is I'm interviewing people that I truly think are changing the world and shifting consciousness in a new direction, and you're definitely one of those people. So a little bit about Michael. Michael is an author, amazing author. He wrote a book, Ayahuasca, an Executive's Enlightenment. You're also the CEO, is that correct? Or
I'm a partner with Chief Marketing Officer.
Amazing, with SunMoon Energy.
Yeah.
And you're also the most amazing dancer I know.
Thank you.
You know how to rip it on the dance floor.
Yeah.
We're also partners in Lovolution.
Yeah. Evolution
of Love on the Dance Floor, one of the best parties in the world. I'm so excited for that as well. And today, I guess I really wanted to start with, and what's been the theme in the interviews I've done so far is, we're all on this path, but we didn't start here. Right? And you talk about that in your book. So a little bit of your background before this sort of awakening and path became your lifestyle.
Sure.
What was it like before?
For a while, it was really good. I've always been really introspective and philosophical, but I guess I previously saw the world as more of a interconnected, but sort of competitive and a bit darker. And then I had this shift to awareness of seeing everything as interconnected and beautiful. But in terms of one of the biggest shifts that occurred in my life, at the start of 2013, I was going through some really extreme fatigue. I had no energy. I was only 26 years old and I couldn't get a boner for 6 months. So
whoa,
that's pretty horrible.
Yeah, I can imagine.
And basically, I was working as the vice president of an advertising agency. I was the co-founder of a startup in the gaming industry, and I was training athletically and intensely about 10 to 14 times per week. So I was never resting, never meditating, never relaxing, and just so goal-oriented that I wasn't really appreciating what I already did have. And I got to a point where I was sleeping 10 to 12 hours each night, not feeling the slight bit rested. I would go into my ad agency at noon, have to leave at 3:30 because I was so exhausted.
Right.
The only thing that made me feel alive again was to work out. So something that I love movement, all different forms, whether it's gymnastics, dance, acrobatics, strength training, etc. But what was once a love sort of started teetering on addiction. And so anyway, there was a certain day where I had zero strength and I could barely get out of bed, and I resolved, hey, I need to figure this out, start feeling like myself again. Otherwise, if in 2 years' time I can't, I'm going to put a bullet in my brain because this is not a life worth living. So at that time, I decided to consult with a naturopath, and he really got me to focus on play and to develop a daily meditation practice. But play was in order to make my life less regimented, less goal-oriented, and to just enjoy things. So to stop training 14 hours or 14 times a week and to just dance more, maybe rock climb and do things that are less goal-oriented and just take time for myself and express gratitude as much as I could. And so I adopted that practice, and I've since been doing it every single day. It's now been 3 or 4 years. And but I got to feeling like myself again within about 4 or 5 months, because I really just focused on improving day by day, not needing to achieve everything all at one time, but just as long as I felt better today than I did yesterday, then I knew I was on the right path. So yeah, after a while I started feeling like myself again, and then it was really going to Burning Man for the first time in 2013 that just I felt as though I had arrived home. And there was a vibration there, this loving connectivity that I had always been longing for without even consciously being aware that I was longing for that.
Right.
And just that expression, that the hugs from strangers, the gifts from people you've never met, and your desire to help everyone else there to just enhance their experience. And then the compounding effect of 70,000 people doing that is so transcendent and magical. It's an experience you're familiar with. And so it was then after Burning Man that one of my best friends, Sid, asked me, he's like, what are you doing for New Year's this year? I said, I don't know, man, it's only September. What do you have in mind? And he's like, well, I want to do something different, and I want to go down to the Amazon jungle with my friend Dan Cleland, who's been running these expeditions throughout South America for the last number of years. And recently he's been focused with the plant medicine and Amazonian tradition called Ayahuasca. And I had heard of Ayahuasca, so immediately I'm like, I'm in, man, 100%. I don't care what the details are, let's go. And I mean, as you know, that experience, it shattered my previous paradigm of reality and showed me something so far beyond my wildest imagination that now informs my entire way of being. So, I mean, I can go into more detail about that if you like.
Well, I mean, you wrote a book about
it.
So, I mean, a lot of people can, I'm going to put a link on this video so that people can get a copy of that book. But I mean, ayahuasca is like, and there's been a couple of guests that I've interviewed that have mentioned ayahuasca, and I know I've experienced that beautiful experience, and it's quite eye-opening. And some people, it's like a little extreme. Like, it's like really out there. Like, you were like, yeah, I've read about it, no questions asked, let's go, right? What are, like, maybe one or two takeaways? Because you've only done it once that time.
Well, 3 ceremonies over the course of 4 days, but one experience. Yeah.
And that was enough, right? And what did that shift for you? I know that you said it was mind-altering, but what was it that really like shook you?
Well, it instilled me with this deep sense of peace and awareness that the fabric of our universe is love. It's the creative force behind all things, behind the Big Bang and all of its predecessors, responsible for every work of art, every painting, every song, the propagation of species. Like, absolutely everything is love. And that just, it warmed me so deeply. It's not something that I thought of or understood. It's just this deep knowing and way of being. And it also revealed to me that everything in this life is a choice. So I can do whatever I want. And like any notions of what I should be doing or I'm supposed to be doing, like, they're all illusions, and nobody else really cares that much about what I'm doing. It just matters if I'm happy with what I'm doing. It was that experience. I mean, the only real goal I had as a kid was to write a book that I thought was awesome, and I was 26 years old and I hadn't done it yet. And then the ayahuasca was just like, write a book. Like, that's what you've always wanted to do.
So the medicine told you this?
Yeah, and then in sort of this cosmic wink, she said, I'm giving you a lot to write about. And I'm like, yeah, you are, because I was telepathically communicating with interdimensional beings that were showering me with love and showing me all this infinite cosmic wisdom, you know, so.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you came back, you finished your book, you launched it.
Yeah.
And, I mean, did you continue your work in the advertising world? Like, how did you step out of that? Where did that start turning for you?
Yeah, so one of the things I realized during the ayahuasca ceremonies was that so I was also working on a startup in the gaming industry, which is actually the gambling industry, but I think people just call it gaming for, I don't know.
Another reason.
Yeah, and I walked away from that startup because I just realized, like, it was a cool idea, but it wasn't true to my heart. And then I knew with my advertising agency, it was really fun and financially rewarding, and I worked with amazing people, but I knew it wasn't what I would be doing for long term. So I basically just scaled back my hours. I read Tim Ferriss's 4-Hour Workweek when I was 21 with no intention of actually getting there, but then I was working 4 hours a week by the time I was 26, and it was financially rewarding, but within about a year and a half, I even had to let that go because I realized that 2 of my biggest clients, where I was making the bulk of my money from, was a bread company and a pork company, of which I consume neither. And I don't have a problem if anybody else wants to eat those things. That's totally cool. That's their decision. But I didn't feel right sort of advocating those things in the way that I was. And I kind of felt like it was the universe saying, like, okay, like, are you going to stick with this? or are you actually going to let go and just trust that you can manifest anything you want?
Wow.
And it was in the month of May of 2014 so 5 months after returning from Peru, I was walking around, and every single day for a 3-week period, I saw the sun and the moon out simultaneously. And at the end of the 21 days, I made a note in my phone saying, I don't even know if this is astronomically possible, but I'm paying attention. I'm seeing the sun and the moon all the time. And the very next day, my friend Charlie calls me and says, Michael, I want you to come meet this clean energy company. I think you're going to be super interested in what they're doing. You're probably going to want to invest, but just like come meet them. I say, okay, for sure, man. So I go and I meet with them the day after that. They're showing me these technologies, and I just realize, I'm like, oh my goodness, like this whole energy scarcity issue, or the illusion that we need to rely on the oil industry or non-renewable sources, it's just a total farce. And like, we don't need to at all. Like, there are so many solutions. And I love the company's philosophies. And then I find out that the name of the company is SunMoon Energy. So wow. I get covered in goosebumps, and I'm like, all right, I'm in. Like, what do you guys want to do?
Yeah.
And so I became a partner in that company like 3 days later, essentially.
You're just in.
Yeah. And ever since, I mean, it's been an incredibly rewarding journey. Mm-hmm. It's fascinating because like we're working on them. They're not commercial yet, but they should be soon. And it's beyond solar, it's beyond wind, it's beyond anything that's currently on the market. It's 24/7 clean energy generation that's infinitely scalable. So it's applicable to absolutely anything that requires power,
wow.
which is virtually everything we use.
Yes.
And it's gonna happen. Like, it's amazing too, because we're not the only ones working on it. I believe this technology has probably been around for 3 to 4 decades. In the past, it's been silenced. Larger companies have purchased it, shelved the patents so that nobody else can use them. Or, I mean, some people have been killed in the past for these things. But, and also I think there are a lot of, like, if you go on the internet and you start searching perpetual motion machines and mm-hmm. things of that nature, I do think you will come across a lot of fakes. Mm-hmm. You may be able to find some legitimate stuff, but I think a lot of the stuff that circulates around the internet is, a lot of it's fake, mm-hmm. Or at least not scalable.
Right.
But it is possible, and it's everyone's going to know about it in the coming years, I believe. And what's great is, like, an analogy I like to make is Roger Bannister and the 4-minute mile. Mm-hmm. So back in the late 1960s, anatomists and anyone who studied physicality suggested, and athletes altogether suggested, that running a mile in under 4 minutes was physically impossible. Mm-hmm. Just a human being could not do it. Mm-hmm. And so people maintain that belief for forever, you know? Right. And then one day Roger Bannister ran it in under 4 minutes. And wow. then 2 months later, 2 more guys broke it. And then 2 months later, 2 more people broke it. And now, like, to be an elite level high school athlete in the US, they're running a mile in under 4 minutes because they're aware that it's possible, right? So the same thing with clean energy technologies. There's, like, people in pockets all around the world who are working on it. And once one of them distributes it and then another one follows suit, everyone's going to realize, okay,
it's totally possible.
Yeah, we don't need to destroy our planet to power our desires.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think this is part of, like, the shift in consciousness.
Totally.
Is, like, being the leader and showing that it's possible, and then it becomes mm-hmm. possible for all human beings, and it's constantly shifting from that example to even, I remember one example that I always love. It's like, I know I'm going to hear somebody complain that we don't know for sure if, they did land on the moon, but when JFK said, we're going to land on the moon, right. They didn't even have any idea of what they were doing. Yeah. Like, they were like, oh, shit, he said we're going to land on the moon, we have to figure this out. So it's like, the moment you create something outside of what's possible, it's like, okay, let's figure out how to make that happen. Totally. And you're actually a leader in that. So that's freaking amazing. Like, thank you for the work that you're doing. I know it can't be easy in that industry.
It's a fucking roller coaster.
Yeah.
Like, especially because we're a startup, right? So yeah. One day you think we're going to deliver clean energy to the whole world, and all of these issues we're facing as a species are going to disappear. And then the next day you're like, we're going to be bankrupt. Right. And it's this teeter-totter act that, I mean, fortunately I meditate every day and I can detach myself to a degree so that I'm not, like, I am emotionally invested, but I don't get sad or like I reserve excitement when I expect things to happen, or I believe that things will happen. I reserve excitement until it's actually executed, which was a lesson I learned early on. Like in my first month, we signed a $169 million purchase order to distribute this smart light technology around the world. So I thought in a month, I'm like, holy shit, like never gonna have to worry about anything ever again, and I'm just gonna be able to execute this mission, and it's all gonna be easy. Yeah. And then like the company that we signed the contract with, they disappeared off the face of the earth. And it's like, still have no idea what happened to them. And I don't think it was anything malicious. I think they just probably like overstepped their abilities and they couldn't actually fulfill upon the agreement that they made. But yeah, I forget what your question was.
Well, no, because the thing of this teeter-totter, like it's actual work. It's not like you're in an industry that there's a lot of cards stacked against you. Totally. And you're constantly moving and going through it, which also speaks to like even this quote unquote spiritual path or conscious path. It's not particularly easy. It's not as if all of a sudden, oh, I'm spiritual, I meditate, now life is like, but it does become a different experience of it. And as you go through things and things are showing up, you have to keep going and you're staying committed to it. And so for that, I acknowledge you because I know it takes something. Yeah. And I mean, SunMoon Energy is not your only thing. You obviously are an author as well, and you are one of the partners and creators of Lovolution. So when you were talking about Burning Man, I kind of lit up a little bit. So that was a big shift for you. Burning Man was probably one of those like openers.
One of the biggest catalysts in my life.
Really? Yeah. Yeah. And you've been going back every year?
Yeah, I've been 4 years in a row.
Wow.
This coming year is the first time I don't know for sure if I'll be there because I'm very tunnel visioned on SunMoon Energy right now, and I just don't want to commit to it, you know. But I still am buying a ticket tomorrow.
Just to make sure.
And then if it rolls around and I can go, I go, and then if not, I sell it to somebody else who's going to have a magical experience.
So you would suggest Burning Man to someone that's looking for like a spiritual awakening or something?
Yeah. I mean, to me, it's the manifestation of human potential and loving connection. Like, for me, it's just everyone behaving the way I've always known deep down that people could interact with one another. Yeah. But like, you know, in our regular day-to-day lives, there's, I don't know, people are scared, there's fear, there's a lot of social fronts. Like, you know, I like to just, when I meet somebody, to be able to give them a hug the first time I've ever met them, right? Right. But it's cool if somebody else isn't comfortable with that, and I understand why. But at Burning Man, that's just like the norm. And then people are just like, oh, here's a gift. Here's something that I made and I want to share with you. And it ranges anywhere from like a psychedelic substance to a kiss on the cheek to somebody investing millions of dollars to build a double-decker art car sound bus that has a sound system from heaven to make you feel like you're in nirvana, and you make probably are. Yeah. And so it's just like, I don't know, everybody caring so much about one another and not expecting anything in return. And it just shows the power of like gifting and of, just sharing. And also, like, as you know, like the leave no trace philosophy, where everybody picks up after themselves. And despite it being 70,000 people in this desert, you don't see a single piece of trash anywhere because people just, they pay that respect to their environment and to one another. Yes. So that's really powerful.
And to the land. I remember when we were driving in, I was like, oh my God, this is like indigenous land. Totally. This is like a sacred indigenous land that this festival is taking place in. There's like a vortex of energy happening there that's like beyond just us showing up. Do you know what I mean? And enjoying it. Because that was my first year, just so anybody who's watching, it was my first year going to Burning Man. We just went last year, and it wasn't just going. We went with Lovolution, and we had a sound camp right on Esplanade at 9:30. I remember when we got that location, you were like so happy. And me, I didn't know what the hell Esplanade was. Yeah. And then I got to see like, oh shit, we're like right in the smack middle of this party, and we're facilitating the experience. We're actually, and I think that speaks to like the measurements of our lives too, because like in our daily life in the city, you're facilitating this transformation for people with every interaction that you're doing and all the times that you're on your talks. I love watching your videos. How do people tune in to be able to see? You do some of the most amazing videos where you're just sharing authentically, and I love it.
It's just on my website. It's www.michaelsanders.co, so .co.
Okay. Awesome. So that's where you can find him, and I'll also add a link for that. What are you going to be up to? It sounds like SunMoon Energy is taking up the core of what you're up to right now. Is that the direction you're sort of...
I'm really tunnel visioned on it right now. I've realized that whenever I achieve anything great in my life, I'm very focused on it. So right now it's SunMoon Energy, like movement, meditation, just taking care of myself, and then allowing myself a lot of open space and emptiness around it. So it's not like I'm working, 80 hours a week or anything, but not even close actually. But I keep myself open so that whenever I do need to work on SunMoon, I'm ready for it. And the open space that I surround that time with allows me plenty of opportunity to rejuvenate.
Yes.
So that I'm just always in a state of I'm ready. Like I'm always ready to go, and I never feel tired or burnt out or anything, because I've been down that road before where I've burned myself out by trying to do 1,000 things at once. And now I'm like, just do this thing that you care so deeply about, and you can make it real.
Yeah, and that's going to change the whole freaking world. Like, no big deal.
Yeah, hopefully.
Yeah, it will.
I mean, it will. Hopefully it will.
Yeah, it will. So part of the questions I've been asking all of our guests is, because the slogan of the show is like, you can change the world simply by changing your own. Because I think you inspire a lot of people to take on bigger things, and it always starts here with you. So what are some of the takeaways you could give our audience of like ways that they could start changing their world by loving their own, like their own world?
Yeah, I would say do the things that excite you the most. Do the things you love the most as much as you possibly can. Because, I mean, what else is there to do in this life? If you're filling your time with things that you aren't particularly passionate about, I mean, ask yourself why. And then just modify those behaviors. Maybe you can't do everything you want to do in this moment, but just do more today that you love than you did yesterday. And just head in that trajectory, and then soon you'll be, I think, living a life of bliss. And it's not to suggest that there aren't days that are hard, but like you'll be in an amazing direction.
Yeah, so more play.
Yeah, play.
A lot more play.
Play as much as you can. Like, I truly believe everyone needs to play every single day. Like I do. I devote at least like 1 to sometimes all day, like 1 hour to all day of just playing. Like no cell phone, just like I have an iPod so that I can listen to music totally disconnected from my cell phone. I mean, some people could consider their cell phone play. That's cool. I don't as much, but yeah, just play every day.
We'll be coming back every Thursday. Remember, you really are changing the world simply by loving your own. This is Coffee Break with Vanessa. Until then, love you. Thank you. Bye.